Holiday Cinema. I'm Griff.
I'm Jacob.
And today this is going to be part 2 of our Batman retrospective. We're going to be looking at the Tim Burton era now with Batman 89 and Batman Returns.
Yeah, these are a couple of my favorite Batman movies. I love Tim Burton's style with them. I love just the like kind of mix of the zany stories with the more dark elements, and it's definitely an era that it's all I think my first Batman movies that I interacted with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think back in the day, I think it was TNT used to do a lot of like what they deemed to be quote unquote spooky movies leading up to Halloween.
Oh, and of course anything by Tim Burton falls in that category.
Right, because anything by Tim Burton is quote unquote spooky.
Well,
because of how
to be fair, he does.
He
does sneak in a lot of weird spooky stuff in there.
He's a spooky man, but yeah, I remember seeing it on TV prior to watching the Christopher Nolan era.
Oh, that's interesting, because I didn't see it until after Christopher Nolan. I didn't get into Batman pretty much at all until I was in my early teens. And so The Dark Knight Rises had already come out, and that's what got me really into Batman. And then my dad and I got Batman 89 at a used DVD store.
Nice.
And watched it. So I've got kind of mixed feelings about this era of Batman. And I guess before we start, we'll talk about the Batman landscape, because at this point, there hadn't really been mainstream media, aside from comic books. There hadn't really been that much Batman stuff since the Adam West Batman TV show. And so there were a lot of people who had just known that and maybe known the Silver Age child-friendly comics. And when they heard about this dark, gritty Tim Burton Batman movie, they were not very happy. But then there was the other side of the spectrum where at this point, the 70s and 80s run of Batman comics were famously kind of dark. That's where you got a lot of the classic Frank Miller stories. And so there were Batman comic fans that were ready for something that was less childish and something that was a little bit more mature, that could reflect how dark and mature Batman could actually be. So there was a little bit of almost a culture war. I know that it's touched on in the Batman and Bill documentary about Bill Finger, but that when Batman 89 came out, Adam West and Burt Ward hosted like a live marathon of the Batman TV show, specifically to get people to tune into that and not go see the movie as a form of protest, because it was like, Tim Burton, you're destroying the sanctity of this beloved childhood character. It was very Silent Night, Deadly Night. But then there was the other side of the spectrum. People were so excited that they were buying tickets to unrelated movies to go and just watch the trailer for Batman. And then they would either watch the rest of the movie or just leave. Because at that time, that was the only way to watch trailers, was actually going into the theater.
Yeah, no, I just find that so fascinating, as kind of looking at how times have changed. You can literally go look up on YouTube whatever you want. Even, trailers from movies that are, considered to be like kind of seminal and like sci-fi, like things that probably you and I wouldn't have seen in theaters. And to think about how having to just see what
to have that be your only
spoilers,
that be your only look, that and like maybe the blurb that was in the newspapers about it. Very, very different time for movies. And there was also, as more often than not is the case, was a lot of drama around the casting of Batman, because at this point Michael Keaton was known for like Beetlejuice, and that was it. And they're like, really? That's our Batman? And as is always the case, he ended up doing a good job. I really like... I'm not super fond of Michael Keaton's Batman, but I really like his Bruce Wayne. I think he pulled off kind of the awkward, poorly socialized weirdo that Bruce Wayne is.
Oh, totally.
With like elements of the suave playboy, but also Tim Burton brought in like the tortured soul stuff. That's some of the few things that I think he really did get about the character. That's part of why I have such mixed feelings, is because there's so much that there's so many areas where I don't think that Tim Burton really got it or really wanted to get it. But then there are some areas where it was just spot on.
Oh, totally.
So the very first one, Batman 1989, opening just right out of the gate. It's kind of weird shots of the Batman like swooping through the Batman logo. It almost looks like the trench run with Danny Elfman's score. And oh damn, Danny Elfman's score.
Damn.
It's so good.
Danny Elfman is one of my favorite composers for sure.
Yeah, and this is such a great score that you can hear its DNA.
Oh, totally.
In so many of his subsequent scores. And even like there are certain scores that came out before it that you can hear like kind of leading up to this.
Yeah, this was certainly kind of the point where he really took off and created a style that was completely his own.
Yeah.
You can really tell in movies that came after this, like, this is a Danny Elfman movie without even having to look at the credits.
Yeah, definitely. And then we get the opening credits. The other thing that I was looking at, Batman accredited to Bob Kane alone. This is in that dark, dark time before anybody knew or appreciated Bill Finger. And then after that, we get a look at Gotham City. And remember in the Adam West movie when it was just L.A.? Oh boy, now it looks gothic. It looks like the New York, Chicago stand-in it is in the comics. I really like the look of this Gotham. They even brought in the look that's also prevalent in like the animated series, where it seems timeless. Like the cars look like they're from the 30s. The outfits look like they're from around that era, but then a lot of the technology is from the era that it was made in. Like they've got computers. That really interesting kind of almost existing outside of time.
Oh, totally.
That a lot of Batman material has.
It's very Gotham. This setting for this movie feels like it's one of the few things in this movie that feels like it was just stripped right out of a comic book.
Yeah, definitely. So we swoop in. This opening scene always trips me up. Like when I watched it for the first time, and then every time I've rewatched it ever after like a long break, I'm like, oh wow, it opens with the Wayne murders. It kind of tricks you. So like if you're familiar with Batman's origin story, it kind of tricks you like that. It's a pair of parents and their little son coming out of a theater. They can't get a cab, so they go down a dark alley. They get mugged. Interestingly, Batman doesn't do anything until after it happens.
Right.
He just kind of watches. And so the mugging fully happens, and there's two of them, and they run off, and they're like on a rooftop counting up their gains. And that's when Batman shows up. We can see him watching from the rooftop, so I always thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah, when I was taking notes on this one, the thing that I said was that this movie starts with a scene that's almost the exact same as Batman's origin story without being Batman's origin story.
Yeah, which, I mean, I get, like, it's directly showing this is the thing that happened to Bruce Wayne. Batman is now stopping it from happening to anyone else.
Yeah.
Except he didn't really stop it from happening to anyone else. He caught up with the criminals afterwards.
He waited for his moment, not their moment.
Which was a little bit weird. That's one of the things where, like, maybe he doesn't have a flawless understanding
Right.
of Batman as a character. But also, something that's interesting about these Burton movies is that Batman isn't really the main character.
Right.
In this one and in Batman Returns, it's more the villain story. In this one, Jack Nicholson turning into the Joker and then doing Joker things, and then in Batman Returns, the Penguin and his whole thing, and then the other story in this, it's Vicky Vale on like an investigation into figuring out what the Batman is. And then in Batman Returns, it's Catwoman.
Right.
And Vicky Vale's plotline here has almost like Phantom of the Opera feels to me, where she's trying to uncover this mystery because Batman's like a cryptid.
Right.
And then slowly gets close to him. He brings her down into his lair.
Very, very Phantom vibes without the agency.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Vicky Vale's a recurring character in Batman.
Yeah, she's a recurring love interest.
Yeah, and the one thing that I have a qualm with in this movie with her representation is that she, in the beginning, or closer to the beginning of the movie, she has this like kind of this like wealth of knowledge in the set. She's very much her own character. Like she comes into the movie with, you know, this investigative war piece that is supposed to win a Pulitzer or something like that.
She's the driving force of the movie.
Oh,
she's
totally.
like the one who like actually has the means to do the investigation, but she's the one saying, "No, there's something to this Batman story. I want to investigate it."
Oh, totally.
And then she's kind of relegated to being a damsel in distress in the second half, and yes, that's
the part that I have an issue with. Is like as soon as she sleeps with him,
pretty much. Then it's just weird date stuff. Yeah.
Why isn't he calling me?
Yep.
All of he is lost to the man.
Right. I'm not a huge fan of that aspect either. But so this scene plays out. Batman shows up and startles them. They're real trigger happy. They shoot him down.
Yeah.
And he lays there for a second. He gets up like Undertaker. They talk about how one of their fellow criminals got pushed off a building by Batman and died. We don't really have an indication if that really happened or if it's embellished. We don't know if this Batman has the same qualms about killing as the Batman we know and love. Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
And that's the thing too, is that like I find like in a lot of Batman movies, he somehow doesn't have that qualm, or you know, it seems like he's less interested with not killing than he is with like, if it happens.
Yeah, and we'll get to that once it starts coming up in the story. I've got some things to say. But so it's that iconic scene. He knocks out one of the thugs. He holds the other one off of the ledge, and he says, "I'm not going to kill you. I want you to tell all your friends about me." And that's when he says, "What are you?" And he says, "I'm Batman."
I'm Batman. That was horrible. Yeah. Got it all.
I mean, that was also before there was really a different voice for Batman. That wasn't really until Kevin Conroy, really. So then we cut away from that to the main Gotham plot. Billy D. Williams is in this movie as Harvey Dent, and I am still not over never having really gotten his ability to play Two-Face.
Oh yeah,
we kind of got it in the Lego Batman movie, but that character's in so little of that movie. It's really just like a fan service cameo.
You know, every time he was on the screen, my brain started switching his name with Lando.
So you were just calling him Lando Calrissian?
I was doing Harvey Calrissian.
Oh, okay.
Lando Dent. And instead of Two-Face, how's my ship?
Yeah, we get lots of that stuff. Cut again to Jack Nicholson, who his arc is easily the best of the movie. I really love I mean, I love aspects of it. There's some stuff that they do to the Joker's character, like, spoiler alert, the fact that he was the one who killed Bruce Wayne's parents.
Right.
Which apparently that was Tim Burton's idea. The writer specifically said, that was not my idea. Don't come for me.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of funny.
I thought it was a neat little thing that his character's name before becoming Joker was also Jack.
Yeah. I think it's like that in The Killing Joke, too, though.
It is.
Yeah. So Jack is a smarmy, white-collar gangster. He's fooling around with his boss's wife/mistress/daughter/niece. I don't think it's ever said what her connection to him is, but they don't want him to know.
Right.
So Jack then meets with Detective Eckhart. So this is another aspect that comes largely from Batman Year One, is the idea of Gotham's police force being corrupt.
Right.
Which obviously in the Adam West days, it was squeaky clean. Batman and Robin were an equal partner to law enforcement. Robin says, support your police. And then here, this also kind of justifies why Batman would even be needed because the point is that the police force in this world isn't getting the job done.
Right.
And that's why Batman goes out of the law. In the world where the police force is perfect and incorruptible, then it brings the question of why doesn't he just give his Batman technology to the police?
Right.
Why doesn't he just work with them with total transparency? Why does he need to be Batman? And so that makes its feature film debut here with Jack meeting with Detective Eckhart. And we get from this scene that Jack is after his boss's position, but nobody respects him. We get that we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of Gotham, and that they're having a big party. This is kind of like a weird C-plot.
Yeah.
That gets thrown throughout. Mayor's determined to have the big celebration, and even as the stuff gets worse, that's the ticking time is we need to keep the celebration alive.
Right, which is it's like what you said, the 20th year anniversary of the town existing.
200th.
Oh, the 200th, sorry.
Yeah. No, Gotham has been around for longer than that.
I was going to say, if it was 20 years, I was like, who cares?
Yeah, who cares about that?
But also 200 years, who cares?
I mean, yeah. So then we get to the newspaper. There's this guy, Knox, who is a journalist. He's investigating the Batman myth. Rather than Batman being saluted as a hero, in this movie, he's treated like an urban legend. Like, nobody officially comments on him. No one's even sure that he exists. He's like any sort of urban legend.
Right. There's actually somewhere in there in that scene where he's walking into the reporter's offices, the paper's office, like kind of playing up this whole urban myth thing. There's somebody calls him or references Batman as the man bat.
Yeah, I was about to talk about that because they also hold up the police sketch,
right.
And it's a sketch of a bat wearing a business suit,
right,
with a fedora on, and the signature on that sketch is Bob Kane's actual signature,
that's cool.
Which is a cool Easter egg for the time. Less cool knowing what we know about Bob Kane. So nobody takes Knox seriously, but he wants to investigate the Batman story. Vicky Vale, who we already discussed, is a very well-regarded war photographer, and she's coming in and she's interested in the Batman story. She wants to help him out. He is hitting on her the whole time. He never goes too far with it, but he goes far enough that it's it's still not okay. But I don't know that I would ever call him creepy.
Yeah, he's definitely when she backs him down, he takes the hint.
Yeah. And also, at least I didn't read it as him ever like expecting anything. It's almost more like a joke. Still not okay, but
Right.
so she says that because he can't ever get to Gordon, they're gonna corner him at Bruce Wayne's party because Vicky Vale has an invitation to Bruce Wayne's party.
Right.
And so they're gonna corner him and talk to him about Batman. Cut back to Jack Nicholson. His boss is setting up this elaborate scheme where he says, we need you to go to Axis Chemicals instead of Ace Chemicals. I don't know why they made that change. And retrieve some paperwork so that their dirty deeds can't come back to me. And you need to do it yourself. So Jack Nicholson goes and gets his crew together. Then the boss gets the detective on the phone and says, make sure that you shoot Jack Nicholson. And then we get back to the party. I love the scene where Knox corners Gordon and Dent. Mm-hmm. And he talks to them about the Batman. And Billy D. Williams, just as charming as he is, he says, Mr. Knox, we have enough problems in this city without worrying about ghosts and goblins. And then he, like, puts a cigar in his mouth and walks away as he's saying that line. And it's great.
See, he's never not Lando Calrissian.
He's just that suave and cool. Vicky Vale goes up to Bruce Wayne and asks which one of these guys is Bruce Wayne. And he says, I'm not really sure. As kind of their meet cute. Later on, though, this is part of why I love his Bruce Wayne, is when they're walking through the armor room. And they're making fun of all the different pieces of armor, and Bruce Wayne's just kind of trailing behind them. And they come to this, like, fish-like reptilian samurai suit. Where did this come from? He's like, oh, it's from Japan. Well, how do you know? Because I bought it in Japan.
That entrance is so cold.
Yeah.
He's just it's so good. It certainly was like pretty up there in terms of like Bruce Wayne entrances.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Eckert goes, also at this party, someone tells Gordon that Eckert went to go and investigate the Axis Chemicals. This is all just the stuff to get the Joker into being the Joker. I love his line delivery when he says, shoot to kill. You know what I mean? Like, what else would you be needing? And so the cops start a shootout with the gangsters. Gordon shows up and says, no, don't kill anybody. Batman also shows up. Shows that he doesn't have as many scruples about killing by just allowing Eckert to get shot right in front of him. Doesn't do anything to stop him. Jack falls into the vat of acid that somehow leads to the river.
Right.
Not really sure how that happened unless they moved the vat and dumped it out somewhere. But
no, it's just, connected to the same pipes they probably pooped in.
It's like Finding Nemo. All pipes lead to the ocean.
All pipes lead to the ocean. I mean, that's what I grew up. That's how I thought everything worked when I was 12.
And so the rest of the movie, we're kind of cutting back between the Joker realizing that he's the Joker and doing his plan, and Vicky Vale dating Bruce Wayne and investigating Batman.
Right.
They have their wonderful awkward date where they're both at opposite ends of the massively long dining room table. Wonderful. Alfred tells awkward, embarrassing stories about Bruce as a third wheel on their date.
Alfred, that actor plays Alfred in almost like everything. Like he's in
at least in all
pre-2000s.
4 of these live action movies, both of the Tim Burtons and both of the Joel Schumachers, which he's the main. Him and Pat Hingle, who plays Gordon, are the main indicators that it's meant to be one continuous canon.
Right.
With just 4
or
3 different Batmen. Yeah, it's interesting. He's a good Alfred though.
Oh yes,
I like that actor. Michael Gough is his name.
Michael Gough. He is the one that I think of probably the most when I picture Alfred.
Yeah.
It's probably him, and then the Alfred depiction in the Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, for me it's Michael Caine first, and then Michael Go. So Vicky asks Bruce about his family, as if his entire claim to fame wasn't being an orphan.
Right.
That's forgivable. Maybe she doesn't know. She's clearly like not a Gotham person.
Right.
She's
that
here
is
investigating
true.
Batman.
That is true. It is like her big thing that she's kind of this worldwide reporter.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's a reporter.
So she should know that this person who's famous for being an orphan is an orphan. But also, you know, she's kind of our audience surrogate in uncovering the mystery of Batman. And so we learn with her, because the death of his parents wasn't really brought up in the Adam West version. So people who weren't reading the comics were learning a lot of this stuff for the first time. Or at least seeing it for the first time. So it makes sense within the context of the story. I like that Bruce doesn't drink when he's around Vicky, because he's worried that he's gonna spill his secret. He also sleeps upside down like a bat. That was kind of a weird touch. They hook up after their date, and then she wakes up in the morning, and he's hanging by his feet from like a pull-up bar.
Right. Yeah. That to me was just like so. That was like the homage to the campiness of the Adam West. For me, it was like, he's Batman. He must sleep upside down. You know why? Because he's Batman.
I wasn't really even sure
I
what to make of that.
It was a scene that, like, for me, it lacked any purpose whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, the only purpose it served was to be like, sex.
Isn't it weird?
But also,
well, so what it
weird.
serves is because he tries to get out of going out with her again by saying that he's going out of town.
Right.
And then I love Alfred. He is not a good butler.
No,
because she goes down the stairs
totally
and she's like,
rats him out.
"Oh, let me know when you guys are back in town." He's like, "What? We're not going out of town." He lied.
Like, in every other Batman movie ever, like, Alfred's the total package wingman that like just like goes with whatever.
Alfred in this movie, between that and later on when he just lets her into the Batcave.
Right.
Yeah, he's a very presumptuous Alfred. That's another thing that the writer said. I wash my hands of. That was not my idea. So then we spend some time with the Joker. He wakes up in like a plastic surgeon clinic, finds out that he's the Joker, walks away laughing hysterically.
That whole sequence was, I thought was just brilliant. Like, it very Tim Burton, very like, you know, there's a lot of, and we'll probably get into it later, but there's a lot of, you can tell with a lot of the cinematography there, you know, the classic stylings. At first, I thought it was really interesting. Like, directly after this whole season, Nicholson kind of keeps the same voice and that he had as Jack, and over time, it just goes higher and higher in pitch.
Yeah,
that was the thing that I thought, like, that and like, you know, a little later on when he starts doing the like the classic Joker laugh and the classic Joker like.
he's morphing into the version of the Joker that we know.
Right.
Specifically, he's more of like the Golden Age Joker.
Yes.
I think that scene's kind of overshadowed for me because of the scene immediately after it, where he goes and visits his boss, and he's like in shadow for most of it, but he recognizes his voice. He steps out of the shadows, and he's the Joker in all his glory. He says, "Call me the Joker," and as you can see, I'm a lot happier. And then is shooting him to death with all these ridiculous poses, and then he holds the meeting with all the other gangsters, saying essentially the operation's mine now. The one guy who decides that he doesn't want to, he does the classic handshake. He's got the buzzer, and it electrocutes him to death.
Oh, yeah.
Him as a skeleton. That's something that I love about the Joker. It's really just like Jack Nicholson and Mark Hamill's Joker in the animated series that leaned into the deadly joke shop gags.
Oh yeah.
Like that. After that, it kind of became, he was less of a jokester and more of like a charismatic, enigmatic, crazy person. He changed.
Right.
But this version of the Joker, I absolutely love. Vicky Vale stalks Bruce while he's leaving Roses in Crime Alley, and that's where we get a lot of the Bruce Wayne backstory stuff. She goes and does a research rabbit hole, and she finds the story about the famous Wayne murders. The Joker attacks, I think it's like his boss's business person successor, who's giving a statement about his death.
Yeah.
And he shows up, his henchmen that he has now because he took over the criminal operation are all dressed up as mimes.
Right.
For some reason.
No, I love this scene. This scene is so, especially if you've watched it before and you're rewatching it. At the beginning of the scene, if I remember correctly, Vicky is still trying to figure out things about Bruce Wayne, right? And she kind of happens upon this scene.
Yeah.
And as she's introduced to the scene, as she's walking through the scene and into it, you can kind of start to see these mimes pop out of nowhere. Right, you see one in the background, and you don't really think much of it at first,
No, but
and then you see two more
mime.
in the next cut, and you're like, oh, this is something. And by the time the Joker is done with his reveal, they're all in position.
Yeah.
Right, and
it's great. And then he takes out a quill, throws it like a dart into the dude's neck. And then he's upset that nobody's talking about that incident. Instead, everyone's talking about Batman. Gives him some motivation for his rivalry there. He says, "This town needs an enema." I love Jack Nicholson's lines.
Oh yeah.
Here's where Alfred starts really aggressively giving Bruce relationship advice for like the rest of the movie. He's saying, "No, you need to tell Vicky that you're Batman. I think I've only met her once, but I think you guys are really good together." On the flip side, the Joker sees pictures of Vicky and becomes obsessed with her.
Right.
There's the news anchor scene. This is the Joker, the introduction to the Joker's main plot line with his Joker gas.
Right.
There's the news anchor that dies laughing.
Which is a decently frightening scene. Like,
oh yeah.
If you were 12-year-old me when you watched the movie for the first time and turned on the TV to see that scene, it's without context. It's desensitizing. It's a little weird because you're expecting one thing and
especially if you're familiar with Cesar Romero's Joker and the more Silver Age take. And then this, because when he was first introduced, he was a violent murderer.
Right.
It wasn't until like the Comics Code Authority that made him toned down. So yeah, very good, very frightening scene. Ooh, the art museum scene.
The Flugenheim.
Flugenheim.
The name of the museum is the Flugenheim, which obviously is a play on the Guggenheim Museum, which I found to be hilarious.
I just wrote down that it looks like a set from Metropolis.
Yeah, yep.
She's waiting for Bruce at the cafe. Someone sends her, or the Joker sends her a present, and it's a gas mask. And then he pumps Joker gas all through the place. She puts the gas mask on. And then while his people are carrying around a boombox, we get one of the 2 Prince musical numbers. As he just goes around, everyone's defacing paintings. He stops. There's one painting that he stops the guy and he's like, "No, I like this one." And then they move on. They leave it alone. I wrote down the Joker negs Vicky about her non-war photography.
Yeah,
because he sits down and kind of has like a forced date with her.
Right. I found that to be that part of that scene to be excessively funny too, because like he, up until he's looking at her work, he's like all charm, very aggressively flirting, and then he sees the stuff that's not war, and basically calls it crap.
Yeah,
which is just like classic.
That's the Joker. He loves violence. He thinks everything else is boring.
Right.
Yeah. So he also shows Alicia, who is the name of the love interest.
Right.
Who is the other mob boss's wife, daughter, mistress. Whatever. He has now burned her face, and she has to wear a mask. And that plot line is pretty much dropped. So I'm not sure why it was in here, but I think it's just to show that the Joker is sadistic.
Right. There's one reference to it later on, and they're already dead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when the Joker shows up at her apartment. He's like, "Oh, Alicia killed herself."
Right.
So yeah, then Batman jumps through the roof, fights people, rescues Vicky. There's a guy with a sword, and I think it's maybe a light reference to Raiders of the Lost Ark, because he does his cool sword things, and then Batman just punches him. I just think that's funny. So that's when he tells her all about Joker's scheme. He's taking her to the Batcave. This scene when they're walking around the Batcave and she's trailing behind him, she's like trying to unmask him. That's very Phantom of the Opera. That's where that stuff really comes to a head for me. And Tim Burton famously takes a lot of influence from silent movies.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously a lot of influence from the Lon Chaney Phantom of the Opera. There's even more of it in Batman Returns. Not Phantom of the Opera specifically, but the silent movie stuff. Batman then knocks her out and drops her off at home, but not before he steals the camera roll of photos she took of him beating up the criminals. Alfred once again gives him relationship advice. He's not letting up. There's a reason that they reference it in Batman Returns. So, but Bruce listens. He goes to Vicky's apartment and tries to tell her that he's Batman, but in something that happens in, I think, every single one of these 4 movies. He's trying to tell her that he's Batman. He's just clumsy about it, and then gets interrupted because the Joker shows up.
Right.
Says that Alicia jumped out a window. Bruce is able to put it looks like a snack tray in his jacket, so that when the Joker shoots him, it's bulletproof.
Right, because that thin material, of course, would stop bullets.
The Joker says, "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight," which sets off a memory for Bruce. And then the Joker just leaves.
Yep. He literally shows up to just be there and leave.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he was meaning to do. And also Bruce ran away.
Right.
He turns around and he's just gone.
And then she's just left with a mess of a park.
Yeah, it's weird.
That entire sequence of in Vicky's apartment, honestly, for me, is just painful to watch. Because
it's some of the showcases of Michael Keaton's weirdness in his performance.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. But the drawn out trying to tell her that he's Batman.
That's something that I don't love in any of these movies. So then the mayor tries to cancel the big celebration party, but then the Joker hijacks it. There's that great scene, or the great shot where it's the 4 TVs stacked at the station, and the Joker waves his hand, causing a wipe edit. that scrubs him off of the TV so that they're all the Joker. He announces that he's going to drop a bunch of cash at midnight and challenges Batman to a gentleman's duel. And then this is where we get the first on-screen depiction of the Wayne murders. When Bruce has the flashback, it's revealed that it was the Joker who did it because he holds the gun up to little Bruce's head, and he says, "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?" But then he hears sirens and runs away. Then Batman murders people. He sends the remotely controlled Batmobile to the Axis Chemicals building, and it just drops bombs and blows up the whole thing, killing at least 5 people. I counted 5 gathering around the Batmobile. So I have a problem with this.
Yeah.
Everybody rightfully criticizes Zack Snyder's Batman for not having a problem with killing people and doing it a lot, but Tim Burton's Batman has the same issue. And this is where I think Tim Burton didn't really have a great hold on the Batman character. I think he did have a good understanding of the Joker, as evidenced by just the way that he's handled. But not Batman. He just killed a bunch of people.
Right.
He understood some aspects, like the tortured soul stuff he got right, but really, this was a step in the right direction. But
right.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that kind of comes back in a lot of different. I mean, obviously you just mentioned Zack Snyder, but you know, the trope of Batman not killing people has obviously been something that has been, you know, drilled home in the comics.
Yeah.
But is super loose in motion picture and some of the video games as well. It's you know, it's the classic idea of if you don't see them die on screen, they're not actually dead. Yeah. You know, you see it all the time in shows that are you know, supposed to be geared towards a younger audience, but can't skirt the idea of death. Yeah. You know, there's, you know, Star Wars does it all the time with, you know, people getting dropped off a cliff, or you know, you see the stormtrooper go down, but you don't actually see them get back up. You know. Yeah. But you know, the story moves so fast you're not supposed to think about it.
And that's kind of the case with this. I mean, Batman is kind of, to a certain extent, treated like most other action heroes of the 80s, where like, yeah, he's not reveling in it, but he's killing people that are in his way. Right. And it just happens, and then it's out of the way. So yeah, he bombed a building. Yeah. And then we move on from it so fast that I didn't remember it until rewatching it. Right. For this and taking notes.
Then again, I mean, it's a scene with it's not a good scene with probably one of the coolest Batmobiles out there.
It's the Tim Burton Batmobile it's a good one. It's not my favorite scene with that Batmobile. Yes, certainly. I like the one from the earlier rescue scene where it's just barreling at them and he says stop. And it stops. That whole escape thing is great. Oh yeah. He asks how much she weighs so that he can gauge whether he can grapple her up. Right. Just the way that he asks. I love it. So then we get into the climax of the movie. This is the Joker's famous Prince Parade, the second Prince musical number. The Joker's balloon, because up until now it was beauty products that he had Joker gas in, and it was only when you used certain products with certain other products that you would die. And so I think it's funny that all the other news broadcasts, they have no makeup and their hair is a mess because they're not using any products just to be safe. But so he's got his like Macy's Day Parade float. And then when the time comes, it ends up being all Joker gas. Then after the balloon goes off, Knox, the guy that I'm sure a lot of people forgot about, he grabs like an N95 mask and a baseball bat out of a car and starts going after thugs. Oh yeah, for his hero moment. Love that for him.
By the way, in that span of like 3 minutes is more than Batman does. Batman literally spends this entire time up in the Batjet.
Yeah. And then, of course, he does swoop down and drag the balloon away.
But he does spend about 3 minutes just watching people die.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like...
Again, kind of weird for Batman.
Right.
And then, in retaliation for Batman flying away the balloon, the Joker kills his lieutenant. I mean, that's kind of a classic Joker thing.
Oh, yeah.
But still.
The line before that, when he gets really upset about losing his balloons, just absolutely set me.
All of his lines.
I was on the floor laughing. Like, I had completely forgotten that he's like, my balloons! And it just, oh my god.
Yeah, it's such an entrancing performance. I always looked back on the different versions of the Joker and I was like, yeah, I like Jack Nicholson's well enough. And then rewatching, I was like, oh no, his was really good.
Oh yeah.
So the Joker grabs a revolver with a 3-foot long barrel and is able to successfully shoot down the Batwing.
Right.
With that.
Because the bullet wouldn't just plop out of the gun on the ground.
I just think it's funny. And then he takes Vicky and goes up the clock tower. Batman takes the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of using his grappling hook that we know he has, he takes the stairs.
He also, right before getting to the stairs, has to walk through the sanctuary hall of this church and just starts tripping on all the pews. And that was the funniest thing to me. Because I was like, what, if you really think about it, that would never, nothing like that would ever make it into a cut of a modern movie.
No.
It doesn't serve a purpose, right? There's the only purpose it serves is comedic effect.
Yeah.
And it just comes out of nowhere, and he's just walking and doing his thing, and then just
I almost wonder if that was not scripted.
It was just
the costume was so awkward to move it that Michael Keaton actually tripped and they just left it in the movie.
Left it in there.
That would be so fun. So when he gets up the stairs, another Joker goon shows up and Batman just throws him down the clock tower to his death. And then in the final fight with the Joker, after Batman has a body count of 6 roughly at this point, and then in the fight with the Joker, he doesn't kill him directly.
Right.
I don't get the idea of having him oh no, it was the Joker's own trying to get away. Because what he does is the Joker's trying to get away on the ladder from his helicopter, and Batman grapples him to the gargoyle.
Right.
And the gargoyle comes loose and he falls to his death.
Right.
I don't why would you make that choice if he doesn't have a problem killing? Why would he have a problem killing these random henchmen?
But
he can't kill the Joker by his own hands.
See, the way that I see it is that he did kill the Joker. Because if he didn't grapple the Joker to the side of the building in an attempt to, I don't know, get him to maybe arrest him or
well, it wasn't his fault
that
the gargoyle wasn't stable.
Sure, but he
killed him indirectly.
Right.
But he didn't kill him. That's what I'm saying. All these other people he killed directly.
Yeah,
he is the cause of their death. But then the Joker has to be a little bit more roundabout.
Right, because now all of a sudden he has a conscience.
Yeah, I do like their fight though.
Yes.
He puts on the glasses and he says, "You wouldn't hit a guy with glasses, would you?" Or "You idiot, you made me. You made me, I made you." Because I guess the Joker now knows that he killed Batman's parents.
Right.
So then, I also love that it's not until they actually start falling, him and Vicky, after the Joker's dead, they fall off the building and they're falling, and then he thinks to use the grappling.
Right. Then he's like, "Oh yeah, I remember I have this."
Yeah, and then they have their happy ending where she says, "Oh, we're just gonna promise to love each other." Again, they just kind of relegate her to being typical movie girlfriend, love interest stuff in the second half, and I don't like that.
Yeah, the note that I had with that was Vicky has only 2 purposes in this movie, and it's split between the first half and the second half. The first half, of her. In the first half of the movie, her only purpose is to break news, and in the second half, her only purpose is to be pointless.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. So then the Joker's defeated. Harvey Dent and Gordon read a letter from Batman in front of City Hall that essentially says, if you need me, I'll be here. He gives them the bat signal. They turn it on, shines up in the sky, and that's the end. And that movie, like, almost single-handedly legitimized comic book movies.
Oh, yeah.
That they could be a mature thing. Like that comic book movies weren't just for kids. So I think a lot of that is credited to like the first X-Men movie or Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. But without Batman '89, those movies probably wouldn't have gotten made.
No, it was the proof, right? It was the test. It was the how how the box office could, actually figure out that there's money to be made here.
And then, unsurprisingly, they did greenlight a sequel. I think the first one still made more money than any of the other ones.
Right.
As it should, because it's genuinely a good movie, even despite my gripes with it. I don't want anyone to think that I dislike the movie.
Right.
I really do enjoy it. I just have my problems with it. So then, 1992, Tim Burton comes back with Batman Returns, and this movie, I kind of feel like maybe he knew, like, 89, he wasn't super interested in the Batman character. This one, he's fully doing his own thing.
Right.
This is like almost barely a Batman movie.
It doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, it feels like the Penguin and Catwoman.
Right.
And Batman is the C plot.
Right. He's almost just there.
And that's kind of part of what makes it interesting. Because we open up more incredible Danny Elfman score, more Batman only accredited to Bob Kane. And then we cut to a different Gothic mansion, not Wayne Manor. The Penguin's father, played by Pee Wee Herman, which I love. He gets born, he's deformed. There's a scene where they're like keeping him in a cat carrier, and he eats the family pet. And then they take him into the park and throw his baby carriage into the river, and it flows into the sewers. There's a lot of Bible imagery with the Penguin in this movie. Between this and his ultimate plan is to take revenge by killing all the firstborn children of Gotham.
Right.
So very Moses.
Yep. Moses.
So then, the credits play directly over the basket flowing down the river. What I didn't realize, because I had never seen this one before. I had never seen Batman Returns. I had never seen Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, because I just heard that they were bad. And so I had no idea that Stan Winston was involved with this. Like, they picked the perfect time to shut up.
I know.
But I had no idea that Stan Winston was in this. Like, creator of the Terminator, Stan Winston. He did all the creature effects for the Penguin. I also didn't know that this is kind of a Christmas movie.
Yeah. Yeah, the Christmas vibe was something that I really enjoyed. I thought it was it was kind of an interesting take on, we've got, Hawkeye is technically a Christmas show.
Yeah, because it takes place around Christmas. But this one, like, Christmas is pretty involved.
Oh, yeah.
In Christmas and the holiday season.
Like, one of the first scenes that you see Alfred, he's doing the Christmas shopping.
Yeah.
Which is, like, the cutest thing.
Oh, it's
ever.
Adorable. Michael Gough, much better as Alfred in this movie. Much better written as Alfred in this movie, because he's not constantly undermining Bruce Wayne and Batman.
Not constantly ratting him out.
Yeah. I love that now the Penguin is a cryptid. but like kind of a real life penguin. He's the feral penguin man that lives in the sewers.
Right. And everyone already, automatically still knows, like, oh yeah, or they just kind of know he exists. Like, it's not.
Well, he knows that he is like an urban legend. He's a famous urban legend at this point.
Right.
It would be like Bigfoot, like where everyone knows the Bigfoot story.
Right.
Or I guess for the New York allegory, like giant gators.
Yeah.
In the sewers, stuff that everyone knows about, but not everybody really believes. I love that he starts as the main villain. He kind of is relegated to secondary, but Max Schreck, named after the actor who played Count Orlok in Nosferatu. Again, this is Tim Burton letting his love of silent movies show. Such a great performance.
He gives me Jack Frost vibes when you first see him.
A little bit. But, I mean, Christopher Walken.
Oh, yeah.
So great. I just have written down, they really expect me to believe that Michelle Pfeiffer is anything other than a bombshell.
Right, yeah.
Because she's Max Schreck's secretary, and they do that movie thing where to make her look unappealing in the opening part, they just give her baggy clothing and messy hair and big goofy glasses.
Classic movie thing.
And it
doesn't work every single time.
No, she's obviously just gorgeous.
Right.
I'm glad that they stopped doing that. I actually have some thoughts about Catwoman's story. I think Catwoman is one of the more interesting things about this movie. We'll talk about that later on. Because there is this absolute nonsense attack because Max Schreck is giving a speech. I forget what the speech is even about, but he's giving public speech. He forgot the paper there. He forgot his speech, and so he's having to improvise. And Michelle Pfeiffer is having to go back and get it. She offers like a piece of input during his board meeting, and he tells the other board members that she's not house trained.
Yeah.
Which plays into some of the things that I'll get into later with her. But so just while he's talking, a bunch of giant Christmas presents start appearing out of nowhere, and I don't even know what's happening. The Christmas presents open. A bunch of people jump out. There are people on dirt bikes who look like they belong in the first live-action Scooby-Doo movie.
Right.
They look like the Spooky Island parade. The thugs in this movie, Penguin's thugs, are circus performers. One of the clowns is played by Doug Jones. Famous creature actor Doug Jones. Here with no lines, as I think he's just called Thin Clowns in the credits. I love Christopher Walken's dumb himbo son because they say something like, "Oh, we want the man in charge," and the mayor says, "Okay, that's me." "No, we don't want you. We want Christopher Walken." And his son says, "No, you're gonna have to go through me. Run." He's almost got like the Sylvester Stallone voice. This is where there's one of the thugs is a fire spitter, and he spits fire at the Batmobile because Batman has just arrived out of nowhere. The Batmobile stops in its tracks, lifts itself up on a built-in jack, rotates 180 degrees, sets itself down, and then lights this guy on fire with its exhaust.
Man.
Starting off, Batman's still killing people.
Yeah, that's the thing that I wrote down. That he kills at least 3 people in this first action scene.
Yeah, it's so much death.
Yeah.
So much death. So these goons kidnap Christopher Walken, and they bring him to What I wrote down is Tim Burton's Nightmare Zoo.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't look like any zoo that exists.
Or it's just Tim Burton's.
It looks like something that would only exist in Tim Burton's head.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an abandoned zoo, and the penguin's hideout is the Arctic area, and he's got a bunch of literal penguins running around. And he essentially says that he wants for Max Schreck to help him enter public life. And he's got this comedic, like, escalating blackmail plan where he's like, oh, I've got toxic waste from your thing. And he's like, oh, that couldn't be linked back to me. I've got incriminating documents that I've literally taped back together outside of a shredder. And eventually he pulls out, like, the arm of his former business partner. So eventually, Max Schreck agrees to help him re-enter society. One other thing about the penguin, speaking of the whole silent film thing, the penguin's visual design is based off of an unreleased Lon Chaney movie called London After Midnight, where he has the top hat and the scraggly hair and the sharp teeth and the really sunken-in eyes. I think Lon Chaney actually, like, made wire circles and shoved them into his eye sockets to give him that look. And, like, only production images and posters have ever been found because it was never released. The same movie that visually inspired the look of the Babadook, that I just thought that was fun because I'm also kind of a silent movie buff. So he agrees. We cut back to Selena Kyle, and the movie is just really trying to hammer home how much of a loser she is.
Yeah.
She comes home, honey, I'm home. Oh wait, I forgot I'm not married. And she talks to her cat. Her only voicemails are from her mom, saying like, "Oh, what are you doing in the big city being a secretary?" She has another voicemail that's from herself, saying that she needs to go back to the office because she forgot the Bruce Wayne file. That kind of sets in motion a lot of the stuff for her story. So she goes back. This is her big death scene. She goes back to, I don't know, Shrek Industries. I'm not 100% sure what the name of the thing is, but I don't know. They're building a power plant.
Right.
And she's grabbing the file. She tells Max Schreck that she opened the secured files and lays out exactly what his evil plan is to siphon off energy from the city. And then he's like, oh wow, like she's just digging herself into a hole.
Oh yeah.
And then when he's starting to act like not friendly about it, she's like, what? It's not like you can just kill me. And then it's kind of funny that he, in Christopher Walken voice, he like goes to attack her and then he stops. He's like, like he's joking, and then she starts to laugh, and then he actually pushes her out the window.
Right.
I'm not really sure if this is meant to be she's dead and the cats are reanimating her and she's a zombie person, or that she was just unconscious and the cats were waking her up, because she is like really pale for the rest of the movie.
Given the costume, I want to say the first one.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think, and I think that's closer to how it's meant to be in the later Catwoman movie that we try to forget about, the Halle Berry movie. And so this is where her arc starts to take on some interesting things for me, because before, when we see her apartment, it's very like pink, very innocent. She's got stuffed animals everywhere. She's got a dollhouse. It is like a picture of innocence. And then she goes after hours with her boss, uncovers some not so great stuff. I don't think that Tim Burton did this on purpose, because I don't trust him to try to do this on purpose. But granted, he wasn't the only writer.
Right.
So it could be on purpose, but there's a lot of stuff that in hers that I'm sure people have made this comparison before. but a lot of it does feel like it could be an allegory for like a Me Too kind of sexual assault. Because again, her apartment originally is like the picture of innocence, and then after the trauma, after work with her boss, she comes home and then she's in shock. She starts just like chugging milk, and then she is breaking stuff, literally destroying the representations of her innocence.
Right.
And also with her being the zombie, but like if we're taking that to mean literally the person that she was before is dead.
Right.
And she is someone new now. And that's when she becomes Catwoman. She takes like a single vinyl jacket and makes her costume. This is my hot take. I'm not in love with the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman costume.
Yeah. No, I'm not.
I know that it's like the most iconic version of it, but it's not my thing.
It's the thing is that like that costume, it doesn't feel close to what, because like I don't know, you look at the bat suit and you look at Jack Nicholson's Joker, and you can see the direct lines taken out of the comics, right? Not so much with this. This doesn't.
Also,
feel
not as much with the Penguin. That's
right.
Part of why I say I think this one was just him taking the characters as a loose framework and then just making the movie he wanted to make.
Right.
I mean, it's iconic. I do like her performance.
Yes,
I just don't love the costume. This is when the Penguin makes his entry into society by sending Doug Jones to kidnap the mayor's infant son and take him into the sewer so that the Penguin can pretend to rescue him and then come out of the sewer and give him back to the mayor and then be a hero. Batman immediately clocks that something's wrong with this. Maybe he's just being insensitive because of the way he looks. Maybe he's jealous that there's another orphan in town. I don't know.
Probably the latter.
Yeah. So he's already investigating into this. The Penguin says that what he wants to do is find his parents and learn why he was thrown away. He says, "I was their number one son, and they treated me like number two."
That's
Another thing, back to the Selena Kyle is a sexual assault survivor. When she shows up the first time as Catwoman, there's a woman being assaulted, and she saves her, and then she starts like chastising this woman, like, "Oh, you made it easy for him," like taking it out on her. I think that it could be the her acting so sexual could be either referencing or incorrectly informed by the idea that victims of sexual assault become hypersexual, like always, sometimes is the case, but the idea that they will become hypersexual as a way to cope with it.
right.
So that could be part of why the Catwoman persona herself is so sexually charged in this. And it's kind of a weird dichotomy with, especially with that reading, because it's cutting between that and like the Penguin's running for mayor.
Right.
It's a weird tonal shift.
Yeah, it's almost two separate movies at that point. Like it's the tone between the two of them is so separate that it just doesn't feel like it's normal.
Yeah, and it's part of what makes this movie so interesting.
Right.
The Penguin almost bites someone's nose off at his mayoral campaign for saying that he has a weirdly shaped nose.
Hey.
Yeah, the Penguin is weird in this.
Yeah.
He's nothing like the Penguin.
Right.
He's just Danny DeVito Monster Man.
Right, Danny the Penguin.
Yeah. Which, again, Tim Burton's just doing his own thing.
Right, yeah.
Oh my god. This is where Batman, because there's like a weird crime spree going on right here. The person who in the circus performers is the dog trainer has their little dog carry a bunch of grenades into a storefront and then run away. Batman fights the strong man, and he like puts a lit bunch of dynamite, like sticks it in the guy's shirt, and then kicks him down in a sewer, and he explodes.
Yeah, I noticed it, Tally.
Yeah, very violent, murdery Batman movie. Batman fights Catwoman, throws her off a roof into a truck. She stabs him with her little claw, and then she spends the rest of the movie mad at him for that. Penguin, so in keeping with the weird sexual stuff, Penguin is full on a sex predator.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like at his mayoral rally, there's a couple of, I think they're meant to be college girls, and they say, "You're the hottest role model a young person could have," and he says, "You're the hottest young person a role model could have. Take a pin," and he's like groping them as he's pinning the pin on. It's like, I see what they're going for, but it's still a little uncomfortable.
It's so creepy. It just like the amount of creepy things in this movie just keeps adding up. Like that's like the thing that I would like stress about this movie is like if there's any sensitivity towards things like this, don't watch it. Like, or at least
content warning, sexual weirdness.
Yeah, it's just if you know, it's one of those things that it makes it a little difficult to watch. It's something that was accepted in a different era of movies that now.
Well, I think even for that, it's meant to be pushing.
Oh yeah.
Like you're not meant to find that appealing. He's intentionally disgusting. He walks upstairs and finds Catwoman there, and he says, "Just the pussy I was looking for."
Yeah.
She says that they need to help each other get rid of Batman because she's mad at him for pushing her off of a building.
Right.
As leverage, she takes his bird out of the cage and puts it in her mouth like she's gonna eat it, and then he like takes one of his umbrella guns and points it at a cat that's just there for some reason until they come to a truce.
That whole scene is like, that to me is like, here's the thing that you're named after, I'm going to kill it. It's just, it's so
weird.
Stupid. Another point in the direction of Tim Burton just loosely took these characters really only in name and made his own.
Yeah. And then so their whole plan is they say they can't just kill Batman because he's going to be more powerful as a martyr. And so they need to destroy his reputation. So they challenge the mayor to do the big Christmas tree lighting. I think that was what was attacked before, was the Christmas tree lighting. And then they go and kidnap the model who's going to push the button, and they leave behind a Batarang that they stole, so that people think that Batman kidnapped her. And then they leave her on a building for Batman to come rescue. And then when he rescues her, Penguin shows up and like, I think it's bats. He releases a bunch of bats that scare her off of the building, and she falls, and she lands on the button and lights the Christmas tree and dies. But then it looks, because Batman's standing on the edge, it looks like Batman pushed her. Catwoman is upset because she's like, "Hey, we weren't gonna kill this this innocent person."
She spends most of this movie upset.
Yeah, upset or like conflicted. Because the times when she's not Catwoman, when she's Selina, she's obviously going through some sort of identity crisis.
Right.
We see her like walking around storefronts, staring at her reflection in the mirror. That's when she has kind of her meet cute with Bruce Wayne, because Bruce is a potential investor for the Max Shrek evil energy source thing, and he looks at it and he says, "No, this isn't on the up and up. I'm not going to do it." He meets Selina. She shows up back at work for that meeting,
right,
just to mess with her boss. which I think that's fun. But yeah, so they meet each other. They have a nice date. Bruce talks all about how Vicky left because she couldn't deal with there being two sides to him.
Right. And of course, because it's a great idea to talk about your ex on the first date.
Right. It's
Where's Alfred with the dating advice when you need him?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think she asks if he's had.
Still.
I think she asks like if he's had somebody, and he says, "Oh yeah, there was somebody, but she left because she couldn't deal with this, this, and this." Yeah. What's funny, because this is before the model gets killed, is they're having their date, and the TV comes on, and they find out the Batman is suspected of kidnapping the model, and so they each have to leave. And so Bruce says, "I have to leave. Alfred, make an excuse for me." And then Alfred goes to make the excuse to Vicky, who says, "Alfred, I have to leave. Make an excuse for me." And this time, Alfred doesn't rat anybody out. He's a team player.
The one time that he had an opportunity to, say something that could have sparked something in Bruce's mind to be like, "Oh, yes, she's not who she seems." He's like, "Oh,
well, he doesn't know either."
That's true.
And also, he's gone by that point.
That's true.
I love that in the Batcave in this movie, it's just a walk-in closet full of complete bat suits.
Right.
Just on hangers. So, yeah, the model gets thrown off of the roof. Penguin then proposes to Catwoman, and she says no. And then he, in typical nice guy fashion, throws a temper tantrum. He's like, "I never liked you anyway. You sent out all the signals." And he has his umbrella helicopter, and he wraps the curved part of the handle around her neck and tries to hang her with this umbrella copter. And
Classic nice guy.
jeez. While Batman is trying to save the model, Penguin's goons disassemble the Batmobile and put a thing in it so that the Penguin can remotely drive. And while he's driving it, he's in a little kiddie ride, bounce ride version of the Batmobile inside of another car. And he's he's running through people, and Batman's able to find the device and break it. But, jeez. And then, of course, he records the conversation of the Penguin saying, "Oh, I played the people of this stupid city." Bruce calls Alfred out on letting Vicky into the Batcave. Just plays, the Penguin is about to give a speech, and then Bruce just plays the audio of him saying, "Oh, I played this stupid city." And then people immediately start throwing vegetables at him. So he gives up on being the mayor. This is the famous scene, the famous Elephant Man scene, where he goes back down into the sewers and he says, "I'm not a human being, I'm an animal." And so now he enacts his plan of revenge on Gotham. When he was researching his parents, he was also compiling lists of what turn out to be the names of all the firstborn children. And so we get stuff with Max Schreck's holiday masquerade party. Bruce gets invited. He says, "No, I don't really want to go." And Alfred is like, "I agree." And he's midway through ripping it, and Bruce is like, "Wait, but maybe Selena will be there." So he goes for the purpose of seeing Selena. I do like that Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, the two who are living double lives and wearing masks as their respective characters, are the only people at this masquerade ball without them.
Oh, that of course makes sense.
They have their exchange. The way, I'm still upset about this, the way that they find out each other's identities. Because earlier in the rooftop fight, I blocked it out. It's the part where she licks his face.
Yes.
And unlocks fetishes the world over. Is the exchange of, "Oh, a mistletoe. Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it." And she says, "But a kiss can be deadlier if you mean it." And so they're dancing at this party. She is she's having a breakdown. She says that she didn't come here to see Bruce. She came here to kill Shrek. She's got a gun in her purse, and it's actually a pretty impressive performance scene from Michelle Pfeiffer. The way that she's like falling apart from all this trauma. But they're dancing, and she says, "Oh, the mistletoe. You know, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it." And then he immediately goes like, "But I guess it can be deadly if you eat it." So stupid. But then it's almost redeemed by the fact that when she makes the realization, she's like, "Does this mean we have to start fighting?" I do really like that.
That was like, that part also irked me just because, like, breakdown aside, she basically was like, I mean, she obviously she didn't know before that he was Batman, but she had to have known that, like, you know, saying similar things as both Catwoman and Selena Kyle would land her in hot water.
Yeah, I mean, with the wrong people.
Yeah.
Because it was just she and Batman when she said that, so no one else would have heard.
Right.
It's also a thing for the script. Then Penguin crashes the party, says he's going to kidnap Shrek's son. Shrek says, "No, if you have if you have an iota of human feeling, take me instead." And the Penguin says, "I don't, so no."
Hey, at least, you know, manly Shrek's son gets his chance to stand in between.
No, that was earlier. It was like, "No, that go."
Right, now he gets his chance to be like, "Oh."
So I mean, he does end up taking Shrek into the sewer, and his plan is to send. He's having his circus people kidnap all the firstborn kids in Gotham, and he's gonna bring them back to the zoo and drown them. It's a little bit dark.
It's a little more dark than the rest of the movie.
Yeah, because it's not like it was a super. It's been pretty comedic,
right?
But yeah, that's weird. Batman, of course, saves the day.
Right.
Joker gets not Joker. Penguin gets upset and straps rockets onto all the penguins, and he sends them out to launch rockets around the city. Batman shows up to fight him. The Penguin says, "You're just jealous because I'm a genuine freak and you have to wear a mask." So Batman, when he shows up to the fight, he's got like this jamming device. And over the course of the fight, the Penguin steals it and he hits the button, not knowing that it has actually like rerouted all the missiles to come and destroy the zoo. Batman like summons bats, and they like back him off into the water, and so he falls down into the water
because suddenly he gains superpowers over the last 20 seconds.
I don't know. So he goes back down. Catwoman's there too. He stops her from killing Shrek, saying that they need to take him to the police. That's the scene where he rips off his mask to show her like, no, we both live double lives and we have to cope with it. His guy liner is gone when he takes the mask off. And then Max Shrek is like, "Why are you dressed like Batman?"
This is yet again the scene where the thickness of the Shrek boys are just...
Yeah, and so she has to explain it to him. She's not able to walk away from her revenge, and Shrek finds a gun, because earlier when he was unveiling his plan to the circus performers and he talks about how he's going to kill all the children, one of the clowns, there's the thin clown and the fat clown, and the fat clown is like, "Isn't that a little bit much?" And he just pulls out a gun and shoots him, and he's like, "No, it's a lot much." and he throws the gun away. So Max Schreck finds that gun, shoots Catwoman, shoots Batman, shoots Catwoman a bunch of times while she's like stumbling over to him. And then how she kills him is she takes out a taser and she like grabs on to, I think it's a generator, but something, and she like puts the taser between them and like kisses him through the taser so that it electrocutes both of them. Batman gets up and combs through the rubble. He finds like spooky Halloween store skeleton Max Schreck with like the white hair and the eyeballs still in there. It's a funny prop. But no Catwoman. Penguin crawls out of the water and he goes over to his umbrella rack. And Batman doesn't notice because he's looking for Catwoman.
Right.
And so he's got the umbrella and he's pointing it at Batman and he hits the button and it opens and just starts spinning. And he's like, I picked a cute one. He keels over and dies. And the penguins haul his body into the water. So then we have a denouement. Bruce is driving Alfred is driving Bruce around. Bruce sees Selina's shadow going down an alleyway. He stops the car, goes down, finds a cat, takes the cat home, and then we end on Selina as Catwoman looking up at the bat signal. So that's Batman Returns. Just wild ride.
That one, yeah.
It is like when I think of Tim Burton weirdness, this is like just below things like Edward Scissorhands and Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah.
As far as just like, what the hell are you even doing?
It's. I mean, like all of the classic Tim Burton things are in there. You know, the canted angles, the steampunk vibe, the horror elements, the shots that are, you know, cinematographically made to be similar to theatrical plays.
Yeah.
You know, it's all there, but the thing that still just like sends me for a loop is kind of the it's very much Tim Burton presents Batman.
Yeah.
You know, it's
That's
not
what it is.
Batman by Tim Burton. It's Tim Burton presents Batman. So it's really a wonder that this was both this movie and its predecessor was the impetus for you know, more you know, super movies to come when these two were just so freaking out there.
They're so weird. And this one, it didn't do as well as Batman '89, but it did well enough to greenlight more sequels. It was well received. Because, I mean, even if it's not a great Batman movie, which I don't think it is, it's still, like, an interesting movie. It's still a fun Tim Burton movie.
Oh, yeah.
For all its faults. And I think there's more, like, interesting stuff to talk about than Batman '89. Some of it intentional, some of it not. Some of it interesting, like what were they thinking? Some parallels.
Yeah, it's before its time.
Certainly more interesting than what comes next.
Oh my gosh.
Oof.
Yeah.
So that's it for the Tim Burton era of Batman movies. Next time we're going to suffer through the Joel Schumacher era with Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
And the bat tits.
Ugh, the nipples on the bat suit.